young as 6 months old may soon be able to get a COVID vaccine, as Brianna Healer can tell you. Advisors to the FDA voted unanimously yesterday to recommend authorizing COVID vaccines for most kids under 5. The White House says shots could begin as early as next week. In Florida, though, Florida is the only state not to pre-order doses, missing a key deadline. The Florida Department of Health released a statement writing, quote, "States do not need to be involved in the convoluted vaccine distribution process, especially when the federal government has a track record of developing inconsistent and unsustainable COVID-19 policies." Here with us, CNN Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, what do you think of Florida not pre-ordering the vaccine?
Well, the situation is Florida is a state that has some of the highest transmission in the country. They have a Surgeon General who has issued statements saying children should not get vaccinated. And if you look at older age groups, they've tracked much lower than the rest of the country in terms of getting people vaccinated. So it's potentially an issue. We do know if you overall look at the sentiment or attitudes towards this vaccine, it goes down in terms of likelihood of taking it as people get younger, as children get younger. So for example, in the under age 5 group, there's about 18% of people who say they would go out and get this right away, 27% definitely not, and everyone else somewhere in the middle there. So, Florida's likely to track lower than that, but there's about 1 million kids under the age of 5 in Florida. Even if you look at those numbers and say, there's going to be a few 100,000 parents maybe who want this, they're gonna be able to get it ultimately. The pediatrician will just have to call and order it. They're just not going to have it sort of in place ahead of time. But it's sort of a reflection of the fact that Florida still has a lot of transmission. Kids are less likely to get sick, but they can get sick. And I keep reminding people, close to 500 children have died of COVID under the age of 5. 480 children under the age of 5 have died of COVID. If I told you that number alone and nothing else about this pandemic, you would say, hey, we got to do something about this. But I think because it's been conflated with comparisons to death rates in older age groups, people have continuously minimized this, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating just to not have that in place. As someone who, I gave COVID to my 3-year-old, waiting for this vaccine. I'm ready for this thing. The FDA advisors vote, Sanjay, it doesn't mean that the vaccines are approved for children under 5 just yet. So what is happening next year?
Yeah, so you mentioned this, it was a unanimous decision, which I think is really important because they weigh all these different factors, including the likelihood of someone getting sick. It's a risk-benefit analysis. And what they found was that the risk of the vaccine in this age group was really low, and the benefits, again, we realize that kids are less likely to get sick, but the benefits were significant. So what happens next is the FDA makes a final decision. They're quite likely to take the recommendation of their advisors. Then it'll go to the CDC, which makes a formal recommendation, one way or the other, that probably these vaccines are already in place ahead of time, so people will be able to go get the vaccines probably, sometime early next week.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, thank you so much for this, and Brianna Healer thanks you even more, I think, with this news.
Sure do.
You got it.
The new